DJ Metal Craig of Craig's Metal Storm here. I have one of the members of fleshspoil with me today. Hey, how's it going? Would you like to introduce yourself? What position you do in the band? Hopefully, I got the band name right.
Yes, you did. Thanks for reaching out, Craig. I appreciate it, man. So, my name's Mike. I play drums. Uh, Most notably, probably from the band Arsis, I played in for about 10 years. And I also played in a band called The Final Sleep, and most recently in the band fleshspoil.
I might have actually met you when you were up here in Winnipeg, Manitoba with Arsis, bro.
You were there?
I was at one of the shows. Your singer gave me a free demo CD of your three-song album.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I remember being in Winnipeg years ago, and I can't remember what year it was, but I know we were up there, I think, with Arch Enemy and Exodus one time. And I remember it being an amazing show and a really cold but awesome place.
One I was at, which you were at, was the one with Missouri Index.
Okay.
That's the one I met you guys at. I tried
Cool.
to interview Misery Index. That got screwed up for me by a couple of giggly girls coming through the area I was interviewing the guy, and the guy didn't want to finish the interview. He just walked out on me.
Oh, man.
Unfortunately, bad things like that happen. Chalk it up to a learning experience. I get another opportunity to interview Misery Index. I'll take advantage of it, man.
There you go. Yeah, Misery Index is an awesome band. We did a few tours with them back in the day.
Cool. Before we get into the actual interview question, would you mind listing all who's not with you today from the official fleshspoil lineup?
So fleshspoil is actually Jeff Andrews on guitar and vocals, me on drums, and Dan Saltzman on bass.
Cool. Just so you know, before I get into the first question, I jammed the album that was titled the beginning of the end. I think it is your new album, and I thought that was absolutely sick and amazing.
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. I'm glad you like it.
Please go back in the history of fleshspoil and how the band all got started.
Okay, well, Jeff and I actually played in a band called The Final Sleep for quite a few years. I joined that band in 2012 after I left Arsis, and they had actually been a band for a number of years before I joined, but I played with them for, I guess I want to say probably about 8 years, and Jeff and I always got along really well, and he's a super creative guy. He's an amazing singer. It's like having 10 different singers in one person being in a band with him. It's awesome. And he's a great guitar player too. So we always got along great. And during 2020, when, the pandemic and all that kind of stuff happened and nobody was really able to do much of anything, Jeff and I kind of kept in touch the most probably out of all the guys in The Final Sleep. And he had sent me a whole bunch of really cool ideas that he came up with. As well as some older ideas that he had come up with even years before, but never actually had a chance to use in any bands. So I want to say probably in the spring of 2021-ish, we just decided to get together and just be creative and make use of some of the cool ideas that he had laying around and to just see what happened with it. So a few years later, we actually have a record done, which is pretty exciting. And I recruited my friend Dan to play bass. He's from Los Angeles, amazing bass player. I've known him for a few years now, and he was the perfect fit to round out the lineup with us.
Cool, man. Who came up with the band name for fleshspoil, and what is the meaning behind it?
Well, it's actually a name that Jeff has had for a long time. It's kind of like, it's almost an inside joke with us because Jeff used to play in a band called Dry Heave, and they released an album, I want to say, I think it was maybe around 2010 or 2011, and the name of their album was called Fleshspoil. And a couple of the ideas for the songs on this particular album went back to that particular band that he had. So we were trying to figure out, well, what are we going to call it? It's so hard to find a good band name. So he just suggested one night, let's just call it fleshspoil. And I was like, sure, sounds sick, sounds like a death metal band. So that works for me.
I didn't know it came from one of his old bands.
Yeah. So
Cool.
not a lot of thought went into it really, but it seems to fit, I guess.
Who came up with the Flesh Spoil band logo?
The logo was actually done, wow, a few years ago. Somebody, oh man, see, this is terrible. I actually can't remember the name of the person who did it now. Yeah, they were from Europe, and we got in touch with them, and they did the logo up for us. And we've actually had the logo for probably about 3 years, but we only just got around to kind of putting everything together now for it. So sadly, I actually don't even have an answer for that. Yeah.
It happens sometimes, man. Don't worry about it. What are the band's immediate music career goals?
Well, honestly, I would say I think we probably already accomplished our goal, because really the whole point of the project was to just be creative and have fun, and to make use of all these great ideas that Jeff had laying around for a few years. So we really didn't go into it with any huge agenda or any type of goals other than to just have fun and write some cool songs. And it got to a point where we knew the songs were good enough that they were worth recording and doing something with. So we just took our time and we recorded everything over the course of about 2 years. And we did everything basically cost free. We recorded all the guitars and vocals in my basement out here in the woods. And it was mixed and mastered by my good friend, Brett Portzer. He's an amazing producer, and he's been a friend of mine for over 20 years. Jeff knows him really well too. And he basically mixed the whole album little by little over the course of about a year or so, just in his spare time. So we're just really excited to finally have the music out there so some people can hear it. We don't really have any other plans beyond that. I'm 46, and I was very lucky to be able to kind of tour all over the world and kind of do the thing. And I guess I don't have a lot of interest in doing much more band stuff. And I know Jeff, he's a little older than me, and he's played in a ton of bands too, and logged a lot of stage time through the years. So I suppose you never say never. And if we ever got an opportunity to play a show or do something cool, we'd certainly be open to it. But just putting the music out there, and hopefully some like-minded people who are into just weird creative metal might enjoy it. And that just makes us happy. So that's fine.
Right on. And that's funny. You answered the next question I was going to ask you, which is about Big City Bastard, who produces the Flesh Spoil album. So we'll get on to the question that was after that one, which
Okay.
is, let's see, who are the band's musical influences?
Well, oh man, between Jeff and myself, I mean, we just love metal, and we didn't really have a specific sound that we were going for. Really, we went into this with just the idea of no limits, and to just be creative as possible. So if we felt like doing something really crazy, we'd do it. If we felt like doing something a little more spacey and melodic, we'd do that too. As far as just my own influences personally, I've always been a really big fan of more like European metal. So At the Gates, Dissection, Carcass, the first 4 or 5 Cradle of Filth albums, Emperor, a lot of thrash metal too, like Slayer, Exodus, Testament, anything Chuck Schuldiner did with Death, Control Denied. I love Cynic. Growing up in New York, Typo Negative was a really big band that I was into in the 90s. A local band from around here in New York called Stigmata. Their first 3 albums are just all amazing. Very underrated band, but their first three albums were really cool. So those are just some of my influences personally. But as far as the band itself, we just took a whole bunch of different types of metal and even some like atmospheric influences from bands like Pallbearer and Mountaineer, and just threw them all in the blender and just figured we'd see what came out of it.
Right on. And next time you talk to your vocalist, let them know that when I was listening to the album, I know some big Morgion vocal influences on his growls.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Very cool.
Yeah, he probably tried to intentionally achieve that, but I noticed that particular grasp on his vocals. Morgion is a gothic doom act.
I've heard the name. I've actually never heard them, but I'll have to check them out. I'm sure Jeff probably knows about them though.
They split in 2012. They're around from 92 till then.
Okay. Okay. No, that's awesome. I'll have to look them up.
Okay. If you were able to get a band gear endorsement, what company would you like to be endorsed by for your drum kit?
Oh man. I guess probably Tama, because I've had the same Tama kit since I was 18 years old. So, and it's been all over the continent, and it's been in the coldest part in winter and the hottest parts in the summer, and the shells are completely warped. So yeah, I guess if anything like that ever came up, I'd probably go with Tama drums. They make good stuff.
Cool. If you okay talking about it, how did you guys come up with the title for the album, The Beginning of the End?
That's actually a title that Jeff had, and I wish I had more insight into it, but I just know it was what he was going for in terms of the overall vibe of the album. There is kind of a cohesive, I don't want to say story, but there's a kind of a theme to this. It's very loose, but it's a little dark, and I think it basically the artwork that we used. It's an old painting from the 1600s, and it translated into English. It's just called Life's Frailty, and I think all the songs to some degree touch on that a little bit. And so having the album be that title, it just sort of fits in with that whole theme of all this being very temporary, and that's it.
Funny, you didn't fully answer my question for the next one, but you did partially answer it. Who designed the beginning of the end album, or as an artist, who you guys got it from?
Yeah, off the top of my head, I can't think of the name. It's on the Bandcamp site though. It's credited. It's actually an old public domain work, so it's been out there for hundreds of years, and we just kind of took a section of it and kind of carved it out for the actual album art. But yeah, it's been around for a long time, and like I said, it's called Life's Frailty is the name of the piece.
Right on. Sorry, I don't know if you heard that barking in the background. It was a neighbor's dog. It was our upstairs tent, so I heard it barking through the floor to the next door neighbor's place. So if you hear barking in the background, don't worry about it. We're just going to keep rolling with things.
That's okay. That's okay. My cat's probably running around in the next room.
Yeah. Sorry, just trying to find my place in the question. I misplaced myself there for a sec. What are the futuristic music goals of fleshspoil?
Well, other than just getting the album out there for as many people to hear as possible, Jeff actually left me a voicemail just the other day, and I know he's got a lot of really cool ideas for some new stuff. And we've actually got like a 12 or 13-minute long song that he kind of has like a whole demo of that he wanted to start working on too. So, when the mood hits us and we feel like the time's right to work on some new music, we'll get together and maybe start putting together some new songs. But for right now, we're just enjoying the fact that this album is done and that people are starting to hear it.
Right on. And the funny thing you mentioned, you were working on a 12 to 13-minute song. Do you know the song Dope Smokers by Sleep?
Yes. Oh yeah.
I actually spin that one once in a while on my show.
That's awesome.
I don't cut it at all. I let the full 63-minute song go.
That's awesome. I love long songs. I've really gotten into the band Uada. I don't know if you listen to them much. They're from I think they're from Oregon or Washington State, something like that. But they have a lot of really cool lengthy songs. They're kind of like a melodic black metal type thing. And yeah, they put out an album called Gin, and it was probably my favorite album of 2020. A lot of lengthy songs, a lot of really cool parts in it. I'm big fan, big fan of long songs.
There's one band I can't remember the name of off the top of my head. I jammed the song by them, and it was 44 minutes. It's a progressive metal band.
That's sick. That's got to be some kind of record.
The longest song I heard was a 2 CD set that was almost 2.5 hours.
What band was
Two
this?
songs.
What's the band?
I don't remember the band name off the top of my head. I have to look back through my arsenal because for my music arsenal I got for my PC, I got 6 hard drives full of music, almost 800,000 songs.
Wow,
For
man. And I thought I
like
had a lot of
11 years
songs.
in the radio gig.
Nice, nice.
This one's going to be a real good one to ask you. What is one of the new bands of music you've been jamming on from your music arsenal?
What's one of the albums I've been listening to?
New albums you've been listening to.
Oh, I'm always trying to listen to some new things. Back in 2022, Jeff actually sent me an album called Giving Up the Ghost by a band called Mountaineer. I'd never heard of them before, but the album totally blew my mind. And they're not, I mean, they're heavier, but they're actually more of like a melodic, atmospheric type band. And they just put out an album this past year called Dawn and All That Follows. And it's probably my favorite album of 2024. And I'm also really into Rivers of Nile as well. They're just like a really cool newer band. The band that Jeff and I used to play in, The Final Sleep, we actually played with Rivers of Nile a number of years ago. And it's been cool seeing them just blow up and get really big because they're just doing some really cool creative things. So I've been listening to some of their stuff a lot too. I guess they have a new album coming out in a few months, which I'm pretty psyched to hear.
And one that I jammed that some people are going to jealous of, including yourself. I jammed the new Dream Theater, buddy.
Oh yeah, with Mike Portnoy's back.
It's real good, man. If you get a chance, get yourself an original. It's going to be freaking worth it, man.
That's awesome. I heard the first single. A buddy of mine sent it to me, and it sounded awesome. I mean, it's really cool that Mike Portnoy's back. That guy's a maniac on the drums.
That album's all super tight, super freaking amazing, man. You know what's other project I like to make Portnoy's? I'm not sure if you heard of them. The Winery Dogs.
Oh yeah, I have heard some of their stuff. They're very cool.
Yeah, they're absolutely badass themselves. What
Definitely.
social media outlets can the band be reached on?
Well, I am about the worst person ever when it comes to social media. I'm actually not on social media at all. And I actually installed Skype on my phone specifically to do this interview with you. I've never used Skype before right now. So we have the Bandcamp site, and our bass player Dan, he's a bit younger than we are. He's in his 30s, and so he's a little bit more tech savvy than we are. So he actually set up an Instagram page as well. But as of right now, that's actually all we got. We're keeping it pretty simple.
Cool, and I understand that, man. And thank you very much for setting up Skype and taking the time to do this interview with me. And I'd also like to thank Scott and Ryan at Clawhammer PR for setting us up for this talk tonight.
Yes, they're good guys, and yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate you reaching out, man. It's been nice chatting.
What are the futuristic goals for the band? Any plans for a new album or a split or an EP in the near future, as in new music in general?
I wouldn't say the near future, But definitely at some point we'll probably have some new music out there. I try to just, when life tells me I'm supposed to play music, I play music. And I know Jeff's got a lot of cool ideas. And, when the time is right and he and I feel like getting together and writing some new stuff, I know there's going to be no shortage of cool ideas. So I'm sure there'll be more songs in the future for sure.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to hearing the new stuff when it does drop.
Thanks, man.
This one might get you on a bit of a rant. I don't know. What advice do you have for people who want to form their own bands?
Oh, man. I'd say just be yourself. I think that's probably the most important thing. Um, be yourself, have fun with it. Don't try to force anything. I guess that's all like just good advice on how to live life, right? I just try to have fun with things, and especially with music, I think it's a little easy to get wrapped up in maybe trying to do something that other people are doing, or trying to put together a type of band that you think will be popular. But if you just let things come together naturally and you find the right people to put a band together with and just have fun with it, that's all that matters. And if you end up becoming some huge band, that's great. But if you end up just being a garage band, that's great too, because you did it for the right reasons and you had fun with it. So, yeah, just stay true to yourself, be yourself, have fun, and just don't be afraid to be creative and weird, because that's what music's all about.
This next one's a follow-up to the previous question. Please give some advice to bands to help better promote themselves that are starting out.
Oh, man. Well, so I've been kind of out of the game for quite a while in terms of doing a band on a full-time basis. But when Jim and I first started Arsis years ago, back in like 2001, um, really, there weren't as many outlets online to do too much with as far as music. So it was all about just getting in the van and playing as many shows as possible. And little by little, we kind of worked our way up the ladder. You start playing locally, then you play regionally, then maybe you'll get an East Coast tour, then maybe you'll do a whole US tour, then you can start doing things internationally. It's incremental. And I guess that probably still applies today, but for younger bands coming up, there are a lot more outlets for people all over the world to just hear your music immediately with the way the internet is now, that it wasn't in a way when we first started. So I'd say kind of stick with the old formula of just play a lot of shows and just hit the road if that's really what you want to do, because ultimately metal is all about word of mouth. And if people can see you live, they get excited about it. At this point in my life, like I said, I'm in my mid 40s, and I had a lot of cool opportunities to do the thing already. And so I have a regular job and just sort of, a pretty quiet life. So for me, going out and playing lots of shows, it's a type of attention that I'm not really into anymore. But I still love being creative. And there's a lot of great outlets to just put your music out there, whether you're signed or not. So I think in some ways for younger bands, it's easier to be heard by people all over the place, but it's also a lot harder to actually make any money, and like actually get paid for what you do. Whereas 20 plus years ago, when Jim and myself started Arsis, it's not like it was something really lucrative, but it was something that we could at least come away from a tour with some money from. And these days, I don't know. I mean, with the cost of fuel and just how difficult it can be, competing with all the different bands that are out there, it's a lot of ups and downs with it. So, but I'd say the old fashioned way, just play a lot of shows if you're young and you're wanting to do that.
Give me 2 seconds here before we get into the next question. Can I have a sip of coffee?
You got it.
For this next question, I'm going to ask you, how do you feel, and this one might be a bit of a stumper, how do you feel about the artificial intelligence idea as creating some of the band art nowadays? What's your opinion on this?
Uh, I don't really have any opinion on artificial intelligence. I'm a pretty old-fashioned person in a lot of ways. Like I said, I've never even used Skype before now. I still have the same Yahoo email address that I've had for like 25 years. And honestly, the more time goes by, the less I really even want to be online or have much of anything to do with technology. Um, for me, I'd rather just go out in the woods and take a hike or read a book or listen to music. But yeah, I don't really have much opinion on AI. It's not anything that I would ever utilize or have any interest in really even learning much about, to be honest.
Me, in my opinion, I think it's a little bit helpful if you can't afford to actually pay an artist to do your art. But in my actual other opinion, I feel it's hindering the artists who are trying to make a living doing art, like band logos, freaking cover album arts, all that stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's so much talent out there, and it's kind of sad if a computer can kind of take somebody's job, so to speak. And you know, all the Artist albums, we went through an artist named Mark Riddick, and he's just one of the best in the world. And it almost seems like it's kind of a lost art in some ways, with more computer generated type of artwork these days. But yeah, there's still people out there that do a great job of it, and I definitely prefer that kind of artwork.
I agree with you. Yeah, funny thing I'm going to tell you is, you know who Christoph Spatula is, right?
Oh yeah.
A friend of mine paid Christoph to design my DJ Craig's Metal Storm logo for my radio show for me.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'll show it to you after we get out of the interview. I'll send you a copy of it through email so you can see what it looks like. It's actually quite cool, man.
Oh, do it. Yeah, man. I'd like to see it. That's great.
Okay, we'll get into the next question of the interview, which is please give some drum advice or drum tips for starting out drummers.
Oh, wow. So I would say probably the same advice I would give to somebody starting out in a band, kind of like your previous question a little bit. Just have fun with it and don't feel too constrained by rules and certain techniques. I mean, everybody's kind of got their own way of playing. I definitely have my own weird way of playing, and I'm sure a lot of people would probably watch me play or hear me play, and it would be like, man, what's this guy doing? Like, it's not very um, by the books, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I'm not a very by the books kind of player. Um, so I would just encourage anybody to just find a way that works for you to get the sounds that you want. And as long as you're not, injuring yourself or using some kind of technique that would, give you a carpal tunnel or whatever, just roll with it. Um, a lot of stuff I learned just by experience. Um, it took me years to learn how to just like loosen up behind the kit and to learn that warming up is actually a good thing. I mean, we did tours back in the early 2000s where we did like 30 or 40 shows, and I wouldn't even like warm up before a show. And I don't know why I did that. It just seemed the thing to do at the time. But then over the years, I'm like, oh yeah, sitting and warming up is actually a really good thing. So I learned by trial and error. And I was also very fortunate to tour alongside some of the best drummers in the world. Um, we did a European tour, opening up for Behemoth, years ago when I was in Arsis. And, watching Inferno play every night was just mind boggling. Um, Same thing when we toured with like Exodus and Arch Enemy, watching Tom Hunting and Daniel Erlinson play every night. It was just an amazing learning experience to see these guys who are just like some of the best in the world. And it kind of allows you to see how you approach things and tweak it a little bit and be like, all right, well, these guys have been doing it for longer than me. and they're a lot better than me. So maybe I can stand to learn some things from them. So I picked up a lot of things along the way, watching drummers that I was fortunate enough to do tours with or to play shows with. And I would encourage any younger drummers to do the same. Just learn from the drummers that you like, and just be a sponge, and pick up everything that you can.
Funny thing, you mentioned Arch Enemy, Behemoth, and Creator. I actually got my girlfriend to learn vocals from Angela of Arch Enemy on one of these CDs that we had of theirs.
Oh,
Also, I've
cool.
been a fan of Behemoth. I saw Nurgle with Creator in 2012, I think it was, when it came to
Okay.
Winnipeg. I saw that show with Creator and Behemoth. That was an interesting, good show. Behemoth puts on such a great show. Nurgle has such amazing vocals. And then for the last one you mentioned, I think it was, which was
Oh, Exodus.
Exodus. I've actually been a fan of them since back in the beginning when Toxic Waltz came out.
Hell yeah, man. It's awesome. I love Exodus.
That song is good. Toxic Waltz. That's the one that got me into them. But what actually got me into music in general back when I was 12 was Iron Maiden's Somewhere in Time back in 1986.
Oh, dude, it's really funny you mention that, because Somewhere in Time is actually my favorite Iron Maiden album. And my buddy and I actually just went and saw them out in Massachusetts back in November, doing the Somewhere in Time show. And I didn't realize that it was Nico's last tour, but I'm really glad we went. And it was an amazing set. They opened up with Caught Somewhere in Time, which is probably my favorite Iron Maiden song of all time. So that was really cool.
The one that really got me hooked on it was Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner.
Great tune. Great tune.
Yeah. If you have a YouTube channel for the band, what media can be found on this YouTube channel?
Well, we don't. um, we probably will at some point, but right now, yeah, like I said, we pretty much just have the Bandcamp and an Instagram that our bass player put together. But yeah, if we had a YouTube channel, honestly, it would, probably just have like audio of all the music for right now. Like I said, we're keeping it pretty bare bones, and we're just taking it one small step at a time.
This next one's a really good one. Who handles all the business activities, such as bookings, promotions, and all that?
It's basically a group effort. Yeah, just a group effort. We all pretty much have our hand in it a little bit, and we all just contribute in different ways to try to get the word out. But yeah, everything that we've done has just been, each person does a little bit of this, little bit of that kind of thing.
We got 2 more questions for the interview, and I'll need a station ID set for you. The second last question of the interview is, with Fleshspoil's album coming out soon, where can the album title, the beginning and the end, be pre-ordered or purchased?
Yes, so you can pre-order it. We put it on Bandcamp for just $1 for a digital download. Yeah, we're not looking to make money off of it. We're just happy to spread the word so people can hear it. And we're currently talking to a few labels about possibly putting out like a physical release of it at some point in the future. But for right now, March 28th is the date that it'll be available, and you can pre-order it on our Bandcamp site now.
Awesome. I didn't know it was the release date of March 28th. That's why I said soon, because I didn't have an exact release date. It happens sometimes, so what can you do about it?
Hey, that's all right. That's all right.
Also, just remember, I actually met Jim when you were with Arsis, so you can say hello to him again for me from Metal Craig.
Right. Nice. That's awesome.
He'll be shocked to know he's still around. That's the last question on the interview. I'll need the station IDs from you, Mike. What new band news do you have on the Fleshspoil front, as in anything we might have missed in this interview that wasn't talked about?
Oh man, I don't think we missed anything. Yeah, we've got the new album that's coming out March 28th. You can get it on Bandcamp. It's weird, it's creative, it's heavy. Check it out. That's all I got.
No, he's just with the station IDs. The first one is, hey, this is Mike of Fleshspoil, and you're listening to Mangled Music Radio. whenever you're ready.
Hey, this is Mike from Fleshspoil, and you're listening to Mangled Music Radio.
And the second one's the same as the first one, but for Craig's Metal Storm, which is based off the old Nintendo Entertainment System game Metal Storm.
Oh man, can you repeat that one?
No, I'm telling you that the Craig's Metal Storm is the name of the show. I based it off the game from the 80s, the Metal Storm video game on the Nintendo Entertainment System. The station idea you is, hey, this is Mike of Fleshspoil, and you're listening to Craig's Metal Storm.
Hey, this is Mike from Fleshspoil, and you are listening to Craig's Metal Storm.
Cool. Thank you very much for the time tonight, Mike. And thanks to Scott and Ryan and Claude PR for setting up with this interview. I will let you know as soon as I can when it will be up on YouTube.
That sounds great. Thanks so much, Craig. I appreciate you reaching out, man.
Cool. Thank you very much for the time. You have yourself a wonderful night.
You take care, buddy.